All right, everybody. Welcome to today's iGenius webinar. And, I'm really excited about today because not only are we talking about a new product launch, but we get to have some amazing guests that talk way high level, way above my pay grade in understanding the details of cryptocurrency and this new adaptive currency that we'll be talking about today in ndau. So those of you that were with us last week in discussing the new ndau offering that iGenius has might have some questions. And we saw a lot of those questions come throughout the week to our support. Many of them got sent to me directly. And it's going to be our pleasure today to hopefully ask those questions, get those questions answered. And again, we had a lot of questions submitted, but if you did not have a chance to submit, go ahead and drop it in the Q&A. We'll get to it hopefully at the end, and we may actually be answering it as we go throughout. So here's kind of what we're going to do today. We're going to have two guest speakers. We're going to get to ask them, pick their brains about ndau, and myself and Chad, the president of iGenius, are going to kind of go back and forth, ask them the different questions that we've seen, maybe questions that we've also had ourselves as purchasers of ndau. And yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, very informative. So, I want to bring on our president, Chad Garner, to give a proper introduction of our two guests, because he's had the opportunity to work with them over the past couple months as we have kind of vetted ndau and check to what they have to offer. So Chad, let's go ahead and get you unmuted, and let's get this thing going.
Perfect. You hear me okay, Christian?
I can hear you, yes.
Right on. Guys, I'm fired up for today's webinar. It's funny, when we were talking about doing this kind of ask me anything, open mic, really casual, informal, let's bring these guys on that know more about ndau than the rest of us. I was kind of like, hey, let's do it. I want to do it the day of the launch, or maybe the day after, and kick it off. But smarter people prevailed, and they said, no, let's give it a week. You guys go out there, share all the information that you've got. Let there be a week of people kind of doing their own research and due diligence. And then we'll bring on, Ken and Rob to really answer those great questions. And so I am fired up because a lot of the questions that have been asked by you, those of you that are participating, are the questions that I've had along the way. I've been able to get to know these guys on a level that I feel honored to be able to know these guys. These guys are absolute rock stars. I'm going to share their bios with you here in just a minute. But that's the goal of today, a casual, conversation with two of the founding investors in ndau to give everybody, a really solid idea of what the potential of ndau is, what these guys, kind of were thinking as the evolution of this thing came about. So without further ado, I'm going to jump in and just start sharing with you guys, a little information, as far as bios with these guys. So let's start off with Ken. I'm going to move my thing down so I can see this a little better. So first of all, guys, Ken Lang is a technology visionary, an inventor. He's a pioneer in AI and machine learning, invented search engine methodology and collaborative filtering. If you like this, you'll like that. A lot of the stuff that is used, widely by Google. Ken has successfully developed and commercialized technologies throughout his career. He was the CEO of Akiani Advisors. He developed new algorithms and technology for trading asset allocation and private equity. Ken served as CTO of Vringo, renamed from Holdings NASDAQ FH, and served on the board of directors while teaching as adjunct professor of New York University. Guys, he's developed and founded WiseWire, where he served as CEO, CTO, and board member. After WiseWire was sold to Lycos, he served as Lycos CTO. And you guys are going to see a connection with Lycos and Rob here as I do their bios. So just a couple of highlights. He's invented over 40 patents, 2 of which were successfully proven in a US district court to be responsible for over 20% of Google's revenue. Now, I don't know who you guys have in your circle of influence, but not many of my buddies can say 20% of Google's revenue is directly a result of my work. So that's pretty impressive. And I said on the last call, you guys are going to learn that the masterminds behind this cryptocurrency, this digital currency, they are unlike any other. Ken graduated second in his class from Duke University with a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering, computer sciences, mathematics, physics. It's unreal. Holds a master's degree in computer sciences from Carnegie Mellon, and invented a gaming hold deck style technology and started a company to commercialize it, which successfully completed, an initial public offering. So yeah, that's who we're going to be talking with today. That's Ken. And then let's talk real quickly about Rob. Rob Frasca is the co-founder and managing partner of Cosmo Ventures, an emerging blockchain and deep tech investment firm. He's also he is also a director on the board of Onero, which has built the world's first adaptive digital currency, ndau. He's widely recognized for launching the first ever financial services on the internet, Adult Technologies, in the early 90s. The company he sold to Intuit when he was only 29 years old. There he worked with Bill Campbell of Apple and Bill Campbell of Apple and Intuit fame. He also was known for leading his next company, WiseWire, to a $320 million exit in 1998. So once again, I don't have a lot of my buddies that say, yeah, I was able to help my company exit at a $320 million valuation. That's pretty powerful. In 1998, it was sold to Lycos, the second largest search engine in the world at the time. Under his stewardship, WiseWire was a pioneer in artificial intelligence and invented much of the technology behind Google AdWords and Amazon's collaborative filtering. After the sale, Rob ran Lycos.com worldwide. Ultimately, Lycos was acquired by Telefonica for over $5 billion. Rob's third major exit came in 2014 when his company Afanova was sold to Nielsen. Rob is a serial entrepreneur, having founded or led 7 startups. He's one of the first to introduce tokenized VC fund Cosmo X as a means of adding liquidity. I think it's liquidity for investment in early stage tech companies. He's a visionary, an online pioneer who has brought over 50 products to market, one of which had over 100 million users. Rob graduated from Rochester Institute of Technology with a bachelor's in mechanical engineering and received an MBA, MSIA from Carnegie Mellon Tepper School of Business. He's also a decorated U.S. Naval Flight Officer with 18 combat missions. Guys, there was no way that I could get away with just trying to summarize those achievements and those accomplishments with these two guys that we're going to hear from today. So without further ado, I want to jump into this. I'm going to stop my share. So hit that real quick because I want to make sure that you guys can see these guys as they talk. But I'm just kick it off real quick and just start by saying, guys, you're both .com pioneers. You have both seen the evolution of what happened, with the internet and the .com evolution. And now you both have positioned yourselves to be major players in the blockchain and cryptocurrency evolution. Guys, talk to us about that. Tell us why this evolution is so important, and tell us a little bit about what you guys see coming in the near future.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having us today. We're thrilled, absolutely thrilled to be here and talk about ndau. For me, Ken actually came to me, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, Ken? Could be 6 years ago. And he said to me, he goes, Rob, there's this thing called Bitcoin and blockchain. Now, again, this is six years ago. There's this thing, blockchain and Bitcoin, and this is the next big wave of what we've seen on the internet. And, it didn't take long for me to kind of take a look at it and go, holy cow. Because if you think about it, and I talk about this in the video that I produced about ndau, but I want to explain just how really important this is. When you think about the early days of the internet, it was all about content. Right? Anybody could produce content. And then Ken and I did companies in that space. And then it was all about communication. So not only could we have decentralized content, but we could have decentralized communication. You didn't need a central switch. You didn't need a phone company to make a call internationally. And we did company in that space. And then it was about e-commerce. Now all of a sudden anybody could put up a store anywhere, and it was all about decentralized commerce, where anybody can sell anything. And the one piece that was kind of missing, the one piece that was still centralized, was trust. We still had central banks, right? If I want to have a transaction with you and you want to have a transaction with me and we don't know each other, what do? We use a bank because we both trust the bank. And so the internet had all this decentralization, but the one thing that wasn't decentralized was trust. And so Ken comes into my office and he's like, Rob, this is it. This is the next wave, and it's the biggest wave. And because it's big, because it's all the money, it's all the trust, right? So I got my head around a blockchain. What the heck is a blockchain? And what I realized was this was the decentralization of the most important layer out there. And that is the trust layer. It's the finance layer. And so what Bitcoin really did was show that now we don't need a bank. We can use a blockchain to solve this resilient trust problem. And so we immediately went to work, because when you look at the numbers, this is trillions. This isn't like 100 billions of dollars. This is trillions of dollars. And I was like, oh my God, I've seen this movie before. I've seen, not only have I seen it once, not only seen it twice, I've seen this movie so many times. And luckily, I profited from it in building all these companies. So for us as investors, we kind of, Ken and I took a step back, and my partner Kieran and Connor, and we said, okay, what do we need? What do we need to do here? And we decided to go all in. So I'm here today to tell you about ndau, but don't underestimate just how big of a wave this is going to be. Ken, you can add a little more to that, because you're the one that kind of got me into this.
Yeah, so when we were first looking at Bitcoin and trying to see where this would all go, and what would Bitcoin and what would blockchain more in general add to the value chain of what's happening online, we kind of stepped way back and said, well, you know, if you look at things from a very basic level, right? Yeah, we had law of the jungle, you know, way back when it was very difficult for wealth to be created, value to be created, and for eventually civilization to be born. And once civilization and all the tools of civilization started to form, people were able to create value sustainably and protect that value and work together and collaborate. And there were courts and there were governance systems and all the institutions that protect all of that value creation that's so important. And Bitcoin was an example of the institution of a monetary system. But there's no other institutions that are online. We had all the great value creation that happened before Bitcoin online, but none of them were trust-based institutions. None of them were trust-based things. They still relied on all of the legacy institutions. Now, the problem is, right, we're entering an age where there's worse and worse confidence in our institutions, right? Every survey that's done finds that the public does not trust institutions of every type, whether it's, you know, the media or the governance or whatever. People are not trusting it, and there's a reason they don't trust them, and it's because they're letting them down, and many of them are acting in bad faith. Some are good, but some are not. But there's a trust problem, and if we can add that aspect of civilization to the digital world and bring more of civilization online in a way where we can improve upon it, there's a lot more value to be created, just as civilization created all of that value in the first place. So we took a look at what would it take for blockchain to be trusted by people. And the technology aspect is really important, but you want to add a human element to it as well. And you want to do that in a way where the humans can be trusted. And this gets to the idea of staking. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but staking is the most fundamental part of what ndau is about. It's about accountability. You can think of ndau as a unit of accountability, and why you should trust an institution or a person that's playing a role in an institution or a person that you're transacting with. And we think bringing that online is going to unlock so much more value, not just in improving upon institutions today, but being able to do things that you simply weren't able to do before online.
Yeah, thank you, Ken. You know, you actually started to touch on it, and I want to ask that you just elaborate just a little bit more. You know, you talked about where ndau was coming from, why, you know, you got the trust aspect of it, and you say, okay, there's some certain things that we still need to improve upon. So that brings to, you know, the next question that came in, and I thought it was really funny how it was phrased, but it was to the point. You know, why do you think it's so special? You know, you always hear a lot of times, well, there's going to be the next Bitcoin or the next Ethereum or the next big thing in cryptocurrency. So just high level, you know, what is it that you see that ndau can provide that creates that special factor, that next level factor?
Sure. So we mapped out a roadmap of a lot of things we think are all going to happen in blockchain, many of which haven't even happened yet, but we can see that they're all going to happen. But for them to happen, the first building block you need is this unit of trust, this unit of accountability, this staking mechanism. Now, to have a good staking mechanism, the reasoning is, well, you need to have some form of value that you can lock up during the period of time that people are investing their trust in you, and that is subject to your good faith behavior. But it's got to be a form of value that you don't mind locking up. Like, everybody would prefer to be more liquid in something in general, right? They don't want to hold it there unless it's something they want to hold long term anyway, and they've got no reason to move it. It's already in the best form that they would want to have it anyway. So our motivations were to try to design the best long term store of value first, and that's what we've worked on to date, is create the ideal long term store of value so that when people want to use it as a unit of accountability, they don't mind having it be locked up to be used for all these other purposes, all these other ways of unlocking further value. And we said, okay, well, one, if you're holding something long term, you don't want it to be fluctuating all over the place. It's going to be highly volatile. So you've got to get monetary policy right so it's stable. Number two, you want all of its value to go away through inflation. So it's got to be competitive across a range of different statistical qualities that you want to see it have in comparison to other types of assets that you might hold value in long term. Three, you also want it to have a good governance model so that the right things are happening, so that you're not worried that there's bad decisions being made and things might come unglued in how that whole blockchain works. So we basically taken a look at all the issues that people would worry about if they are holding something long term and can't be moved for a while. They don't want to have to worry about it. They want to be able to sleep at night. And that's what we've tried to do, is address every one of those kinds of issues that worry people when they're in something long term.
You know, it was interesting when, and I always look at it as an investor, right? That's how I'm looking at this. And, Ken and his team came to us, some 4 years ago, and they identified 23 problems that they thought they saw in the current market. And one of the things that I've learned as an entrepreneur in the internet and in tech, I always used to think, man, it's all about first mover advantage, right? You're first out there, you come up with a great idea, and you build a team and you go raise money and you go make it happen. But actually, when you really look at it, it's generally the second or third or fourth mover that wins. The first mover takes all the arrows in the back, and then the later entrance goes in and fixes everything and does it right. And I remember a story I tell all the time. I'd sold my first company to Intuit, and Intuit invited me to go to this conference out in Scottsdale, Arizona, and it was called Agenda. I don't even know if they still have it. And at this conference is, Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, and Andy Grove is, the CEO of Intel is sitting right next to me, and, Scott McNeely, and, the who's who, is at this conference. And I never forget that, I hadn't even, it was really early internet days. And I never forget, this guy gets up in the audience and he says, how many people in here think that there's a search engine that you haven't heard of that's going to be the predominant player in the market? Now, at this point, Yahoo just went public. It's taken off. Lycos is taking off. There's another search engine called Excite, and the market is building. But there's really, that's it. And not one of these digerati, these movers or shakers, raised their hand when he asked that question. And you know who that guy was? It was Larry Page of Google. And Google was just a dream at that point. And we know how that story ended. Okay. So a lot of times when you look at these first mover companies, when they come into the market, man, Bitcoin, holy cow, this blows my mind. Now we have decentralized trust. Look at what I can do. I can move value around the world instantaneously, and I don't have to worry about a bank. So they're first mover. And there's a lot of advantage to being a first mover, but there's also a lot of opportunity for entrepreneurs to kind of come in and say, what can we learn from these guys? What can we learn from this situation and do it better? And Ken and his group of ndau Collective came to us, Cosmo Ventures, 3-4 years ago and said, there are 23 problems that need to be solved. And I said, well, how about if we just concentrate on the top 3 to start, and then we can move from there. And that's really how this whole thing kicked off. And so, you know, for us, it's an exciting time because now we're, you know, there's a lot of renewed excitement in crypto and a lot of mainstream excitement in things like Bitcoin. I mean, it goes to 40,000. You can't help but go, holy cow! What if I bought at 100 or 200? You know, you look at guys like Mike Novogratz, right, who bought Ethereum at $1, and then what did he take out of that? 750 million. So, well, I think it was $740 million. Anyway, I'm babbling.
No, it's all good. I you know, it's I love how you said that though. You hear often the first mover advantage, right? That's the terminology we're all familiar with. But your point is so well taken, because oftentimes that second mover, third mover, fourth mover really actually has the advantage because they get to kind of learn from, and just like Ken's team did, kind of see all the greatness of decentralized, you know, blockchain, Bitcoin and Ethereum, these other guys, but then also kind of look at some of the shortcomings, the weaknesses. So I love the way that, you know, again, you guys have been at it for a while, but it's relatively pretty new, right? I mean, like you said, a couple of years back or whatever it is that they came to, but you know, compared to where we're at, you know, this thing is early stage. So, you know, since we're talking about that, early stage, you guys are, you know, kind of starting to get some traction, starting to get some awareness out there. iGenius is just one of the, you know, arms, I would say, of people that are out there, you know, bringing awareness. But who else is bringing awareness to ndau out there? You know, I know you guys are probably focused on, you know, big players and stuff like that, but talk to us a little bit about who else is out there, you know, sounding the bells about ndau.
Yeah. So what we're first of all, we're thrilled to have iGenius come on board and start, you know, promoting ndau. And you know, there's a fundamental shift that's going on right now when it comes to crypto, and you got to think of it, okay, in kind of phases. And by the way, we've seen this movie before. This happened. This is exactly what we're seeing now happened exactly through kind of the early .com phase. It happened during the e-commerce phase, and it happened during the kind of, you know, network mobile communication phase. So we're seeing the same thing happen, and this is what's happening. So right now there's about 10, maybe 15, you could argue more or less % of the world's population that even understands crypto or holds crypto, and really even understands what the heck a blockchain is. And you have all these early adopters. It was the same thing with .com. I used to go around with a laptop and show people what the internet was and how you dial in, and what does www mean, okay? And I used to show weather online to do that. And what happened is you get all these guys, in the early days of the internet, it was all techno speak. And they protected that techno speak because they actually didn't want the mass market to come on board. But eventually something is so powerful that the mass market comes on board. So we're in that kind of phase right now where, you know, if you think about it, this is a very big market, yet only 10, 15% of it's there. So what does it look like? What does it feel like? How much value will be created when the remaining 75, 80% get on board? What we believe in is that that's the transition that's happening here with crypto. It's going from this kind of crypto techno market to more of a mainstream feel where, you know, the guy at the rent-a-car counter says, hey, I just bought Bitcoin, right? I had that same conversation with a guy saying, oh, I just bought, you know, shares of Yahoo. It's the same kind of thing. So this is a long-winded answer to your simple question, what are we doing to promote it? But I don't want to downplay, I want to upplay how cool it is, how exciting it is to have iGenius out there marketing this, because we're crossing that chasm. We're jumping into the tornado. Now is when this thing starts getting exciting. However, you still have to have all that marketing going on in the traditional markets. So what the Onero team has done is we just signed up, for instance, a PR firm in Germany. We have one in China. We have another one in Australia. And so what we're doing is really going after the crypto market with PR and marketing to really get that crypto marketing going. The other thing that we're doing is we are getting ready to launch. ndau was only launched on 2 very small exchanges, and quite frankly, they were small exchanges just to make sure that the technology worked. And now what we're doing is we're getting ready to go launch on a bunch of what I would classify as tier 1, tier 2, larger, well-known, name exchanges, and really get the excitement out there as well. And then on the institutional sales side, look, over $20 million of ndau has already been purchased. And most of the people that bought it were hedge funds, institutional players, and high net worths. Very little retail exposure. What's interesting is of that 20 million, 96% of it's held in the wallet, which tells you that the reason why these people are buying this is long term. They want to put it in their wallets. They want to hold it long term, and they want to really look at it from that perspective. So the Onero team has a broader ecosystem of a number of players that are all helping. And by the way, everybody that's in that ecosystem, you know how they're compensated? With ndau. They get paid in ndau to do this. So they're aligned because they're getting paid in ndau to help promote it. So that's really the overall plan.
Yeah, thank you, Rob. And I'm gonna shift gears a little bit because we've talked, so much about the setup and how we've got to this point really with ndau and the partnership with iGenius. And now come some of those technical questions. So I'm going to turn to Ken on this one because there's a question that popped up in the Q&A and it kind of coincides with some that we received. I guess high level, can you talk about what the relationship is with the BPC, so the Blockchain Policy Council, and how that's different from the central governance monetary policy where people are voted in to run the monetary policy. So how is that different, and kind of what that relationship is and looks like when we're talking about ndau?
Yeah, so I think people have oversimplified a little bit about this notion of centralization, decentralization. We want everything, of course, to be as decentralized as possible, but there's a reason for that. The reason is you want resilience to take place, right? The more centralized you get, the more likely it is you might get somebody that's corrupt in a central position or act in bad faith in some way, or they get hit by a bus and they become a weak link or whatever. The more decentralized, the better. But you're trying to do this so that you get high quality decisions made for your ecosystem. Decisions have to be made on behalf of every ecosystem, whether it's Bitcoin, Ethereum, ndau, whatever. And so you have to come up with a decision-making process. If you were to make it be let's just say a total democracy on everything all the time, well, that means every single person involved has to be aware of very complex issues and try to make decisions on voting it, and it's very cumbersome, and it just doesn't work. So every system has to try to find some way of relieving the burden of the decision-making process for an ecosystem. What we did is we said, well, as an ecosystem, a blockchain goes over time, you're going to have different governance models that are going to be appropriate for each stage. And we want to be as decentralized as we can at each stage, but we also want to make it be efficient for everybody involved. So at our current stage, the way we make decisions is anybody can submit a proposal for a new policy. So it's decentralized in that form. It filters its way up to the Blockchain Policy Council, and its only role in the governance there is to kind of take in everything like that. And when it gets a new policy, it makes a decision. Does it conform with the basic principles that everybody's kind of agreed on in participating with ndau? So you don't want radically different things happening because people have expectations and you want it to meet those expectations. And it either says yes or no on that. So if it does meet the expectations, that's still not the end. It then is sent out as a referendum for everybody to vote on. So you don't, when it's time to vote, people can make a decision. If they totally don't like it, they can veto it. Otherwise, it can move on. But you don't have to have everybody worried about, does this fit with all the technical issues and the principles and all of that. That's already kind of taken care of for you. And another nice thing about it is there's a phrase in the tech world of good companies will eat their own dog food. So we eat our own dog food with ndau, and every one of the Blockchain Policy Council members has to put up their own stake of ndau to basically be held accountable to their own good faith performance in their duties on helping the ndau system. So we also use this as kind of a testing ground for the basic ideas of what ndau is all about.
Yeah, so I didn't, I want to interject this. I didn't, tell Rob that I was going to do this, but I think what's incredible about this is, first of all, we shared your guys' bios. Obviously, other members of that Blockchain Policy Council have, similar bios, very impressive individuals. And last night, me and Rob were on the phone, and he's like, listen, this is how powerful decentralization is. He's like, you think about it, I spend my entire day, bringing awareness to ndau. I'm not on the Blockchain Policy Council, right? So it just kind of shows you, even somebody who's as influential, a founding investor, one of the big players here, isn't on that council. So it just really speaks to the power of having, a group of individuals that all have ownership, that are trying to make decisions. But again, it's decentralized among multiple people to create that monetary policy. So one of the things that we've touched on as it pertains, as it relates to monetary policy, as we've been talking about this, because again, we're sharing it in layman's terms as we talk to everybody about it. But we've talked about this bonding curve. And it really is, in our eyes, something that is it's revolutionary. But we probably aren't the technical experts. So why don't you guys just share with us? Ken, probably this is one for you. Talk to us about the bonding curve. The different prices and how that works. Probably clear up all the wrong the misconceptions we maybe put out there with the way we've been explaining it. Why don't you clarify it for everyone?
Sure. So we looked at it, the bonding curve, as this is a way of releasing ndau into the ecosystem, into people's hands, but in a way where there's not too much being dumped out there when the market can't yet support it. To do that, we use whatever the market price is to gauge whether there is more receptivity to there being more ndau being released. So there's 30 million ndau in a reserve, and this bonding curve that goes up over time there's only more ndau being sold at that new price if the market price reaches that point. So it's all released through exchanges. The basic format of it, there's 3 phases. It's an S curve, classic S curve, where in the first phase is the high growth phase. So the first 1/3 of the 30 million to be released, there's 10 million ndau there. The bonding curve price doubles 14 times in that first phase. So this is sort of the fun phase where the bonding curve is rising more rapidly. And again, it's only released when the market price reaches that point. So there's no timetables that's specific to that. It's all market driven. And it started at $1. It smoothly goes up in little increments in an exponential function. It reaches $16,000 at the end of that 10 million. And every 1,000 ndau on that bonding curve, it's incremented a small bit. And it's currently in the 22 range. Then the second phase is called the transition phase, and that's where it transitions from that rapid phase to a gradually more gentle curve. It doubles another 5 times there, and then 4 times there, and then in the last phase is the equilibrium phase. Now, it's fun when things are going up rapidly, of course, but no tree grows to the sky. There needs to be a more equilibrium and stable point where there's still plenty of reasons for people to own it and use it, and many use cases going on. And it makes complete sense to hold it there, but you're not looking for a lot of appreciation at that point. You're simply using it for its staking purposes and you want to compete with inflation at that point. It only doubles once in that last 10 million. So this is where you might see much larger institutions and governments using it for that purpose. Now, we don't control how fast it might move there, and it might stop at any point, and everything's still fine if that happens too. But we try to plan for ultimately all the different possibilities that can happen with it, and so we've mapped that out and where we think it can ultimately get to.
You know, when you think about this, the genius of the bonding curve is that, you know, in most currencies, for instance, Bitcoin is minting, right, new Bitcoin all the time through its proof of work. So you've got this market, and there's a certain supply of Bitcoin out there, and every day more Bitcoin comes on the market, and that Bitcoin comes on the market regardless of the demand condition. So you can have a situation where there is no demand and the price is plummeting. And if you were a monetary policy guru, you'd say, well, why do we want to put more currency on the market if there's no demand for it, right? But it does. It's doing that through proof of work. The genius behind ndau is that the only time that new currency is coming on the market is when there's support along the curve at the next higher price. So today, right, if you think about it, you know, let's say that the target price is $22 and the market price is $15. What that says is that no ndau will be issued until the price got to 22. Once it got to 22, then more would be issued. So this bonding curve does a beautiful way of adapting, and that's why we call it adaptive monetary policy. It adapts the monetary policy based on the market conditions. Now, the other thing that it does is it actually throttles the growth a little bit. It prevents over speculation. It prevents the currency from going like Bitcoin just did, right? From 30,000 to 40,000 back down to 30,000 like that. You can't have that situation with ndau, because what happens is that it would have to clear all of those new levels of issuance. So this bonding curve is pretty exciting. The three levels are pretty, you know, the first level, as Ken said, they're all exponential, but they all have different exponents. And, you know, end of phase one is at 16,000, as a price of 16,000 as a target price. I don't know if you.
So Rob, so yeah, Ken touched on that. So what I want to ask then is, and this can be either Rob or Ken, I've seen this question a couple times. When we do hit, you know, in your example, you said, you know, market price 16, next benchmark is 22. When it hits 22, then we know there's a specific amount of demand. As ndau comes into the market, how does that not diminish the value of what current holders have? Because if you're putting more into the market, and that's a question that I've seen in a couple different places actually, is, you know, when you drop it in, how is it not going to decrease the value, or may it actually take that dip while it stabilizes to go up to that next point?
Yeah, so the way to think about it is, you know, instead of thinking of it as shares in a company or something, it's better to think about it, how does a central bank manage its money? Not because we're a central bank or because we're doing anything centralized or anything, but because the basic principles of supply and demand and monetary policy are being applied to how the value of ndau is managed. So as Rob pointed out, you know, as you go up the bonding curve, it's only released when the market is already saying it is worth more, right? So the market is saying it's worth more. We're not releasing it when it's not worth more. It's releasing because the market is saying that. Now the market may sometimes say, hey, we think ndau is worth twice as much and it's buying like crazy and it's moving that out. Well, how does that change the system? How does the monetary policy of the system adapt to it? It does the following. As those funds are spent to buy the new ndau, it flows into an endowment of assets that help support the price at a floor price. And this is a formulaic floor price that grows as the endowment grows over time. So you have a bonding price that goes up, and then you have a floor price that kind of chases it underneath. Secondly, sometimes the market may overestimate and say, hey, it's worth 10 times as much, and it might spike, and lots of new money flowing into the endowment is happening, and it gets much larger. But conditions change, and now the market says it's worth less. Well, the appropriate thing to do when you have a stabilized, managed monetary policy is you have to have ways of contracting that monetary supply so that the price can be stabilized. And so we have multiple what are called burning mechanisms in the blockchain world, where different amounts of the ndau get burned and taken out of circulation again. So it can adapt over time. And we've got several different mechanisms for doing that. One last piece of it is, since ndau is very focused on monetary policy and on stabilizing value, another aspect that determines value when you're talking about digital currency is, what is the velocity of that currency? How fast is it moving around? Are people holding it, or are they spending it? Are they selling it? Is it being what's the percentage of it that's being actively traded versus held long-term? ndau is designed to be an ideal long-term store of value. We want to incentivize that. So when people hold their ndau long-term, they start earning this economic alignment incentive that's a little bit like an interest rate, and they can earn that at higher rates the more committed they are to holding it long-term. So if they hold it long-term and it's locked, they can earn a maximum rate depending upon how long they decide to hold it. And if you think about it, right, when you have a large proportion of people who are all holding it long-term, they have it locked, what the market is saying is, we believe in this, we're going to hold this long-term. The velocity is slow, but that means the value is high. That shows confidence in it, and that builds. Now people start saying, hey, you know, the world's changing. We don't want to be holding it as long-term, and they start moving it around more. They start moving into exchanges. Well, then they're not going, that EAI isn't going to be earned anymore. So that gets cut back. So that's also adaptive. How much EAI is being released as ndau is dependent on what the holders, what the participants in the system are expressing through how they use and hold their ndau. And so we adapt in all these different ways, and that allows the stability to happen in response.
Perfect. That's awesome. I wanted to, I know we've got all these questions. I want to make sure we get to all of them. I want to just, so there was a couple that were asked, and I think we skipped them because they were already covered, but there is a limit to how much ndau will be issued, right? And what is that limit? I think you said 30 million. Am I correct there?
That's right. So in the endowment, there was 30 million to start. Now the 30 million is the only ndau that's released through the bonding curve. So this is, as that moves up and it's purchased off of exchanges, that 30 million gets used up. At the same time, there is also burning happening. So if it overshoots a bit and the supply needs to contract, well, then there's some ndau that's burned. So there's another force that's reducing that. So if 5 million gets sold and 1 million gets burnt, well, okay, that's not 30 million anymore. There's only 29 million that's come from that. Now, on the other side of that, EAI is generated in the same way Bitcoin is generated, comes out of the blockchain. And this is only in response to people holding it long term. So that comes out of the blockchain rather than that reserve. So when you combine the ndau issued through the bonding curve, you combine the burning and the contracting, and then you combine the ndau that comes from holding it long term, all together, all of those forces together have a hard maximum of 40 million in total.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's good to understand a little better. And then Rob, I know you touched on this, that there are plans to get ndau onto some, and I think you call them, kind of those tier 1, tier 2 exchanges. But I don't know if you want to add anything to that, because that was another question specifically that we had got. So that, I mean, you kind of already touched on it, but anything you want to elaborate there?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've signed agreements with 2 more exchanges. They're major exchanges, so we're pretty excited about those. And we've got a number of others on the horizon. We've also working with some major market maker firms to help with the overall liquidity in the market on ndau. So we're really, really, happy with with how that's going. One of the things I want to stress here, I'm looking through the questions here as well. So I'm trying to pepper in a little the answer to those questions, with the other. So I feel like a politician, you ask one question and answer another one. But one of the things that I think is important is this kind of mentality that I started with, which said, we're learning from the past, we're learning from the first movers, and how do we do it better? Number one. Number two, how do we do it in a more mainstream way? Okay, so a lot of you may have heard about staking and people earning staking rewards and what is required to do staking. So there are a number of currencies that you can earn staking rewards. Algorand, EOS, you've heard a lot of them, Tezos. And we often forget what's required because we're so close to this to actually earn a staking reward with a lot of those currencies. In a lot of those currencies, you've got to find somebody to do the staking for you. You've got to find a maker. You've got to find a vault. You've got to figure out somebody to do custody to ultimately earn the staking reward. One of the things that ndau has is built right in the app. If you want to get that EAI that Ken talked about, or that staking reward, EAI staking reward, all you do is just slide the little slider in your app. You select what period you want to stake it, and boom, you're done. So it's, again, kind of taking this whole techno speak of staking and converting it to a really easy way to earn that yield on that stake. So we think that is really moving this market more mainstream.
Awesome. Okay, I got one more, and then sorry, Christian, I'm just hogging all these questions, but this is one that's more on us. It's a little bit more about the logistics of, and it's, something we probably haven't covered well enough in our previous webinars and explanations, but, the question is, how long will it take to receive the ndau after they've made the purchase? So there's a couple of key elements here. So there's, we accept Bitcoin as a payment for the ndau packages. We also accept wire, which, obviously, date of purchase is not when you decided to send your money. The date is when we actually receive it. We go in and we mark that order as complete, and then we have to wait for the the right to rescind periods. And as you guys know, we're a global company, so it varies across different countries and stuff. So we have basically a 14-day window that we've got to wait for somebody to clear, where they may decide, okay, they back out, whatever, they have to pay for grandma's funeral that they weren't expecting, and so they have to reverse the charge, or they have to ask for a refund, whatever it may be. We've got a 14-day window. Once we clear that 14 days, then iGenius is batching up all of the information. As you guys know, you have to submit your ndau wallet at purchase. So we're batching up the quantity of ndau purchased and sending it over to, directly to the ndau team, which will then issue the digital currency to the ndau wallet. And so that's going to take, so again, our side of it's roughly 14 days. Once again, it depends on if it falls on a business day and stuff like that. So 14 days is the soonest. Plan on, I would just tell clients about 3 weeks. And then the ndau will drop into the wallet. And I'm assuming you guys, on your end, that's probably not a very difficult task. Once we batch you the information, send it over to you guys, I'm assuming it's pretty quick, right?
Yeah, it's super quick. It's all automated. So essentially, as soon as we get the request from you, it goes into our systems, and literally it's all done on the blockchain. It's a beautiful thing. It's just transferred and locked right into your wallet. You can see it there. You can see the value, and you can actually see the rewards that you get. There's also a blockchain explorer out there where, online, where you can go and check to see it. So it's all, and in fact, that blockchain explorer it's a link right inside the wallet. You just click on the address in the wallet and it takes you right there, and it shows you the whole history of the account. So it's very cool.
Great. All right, Christian, I'll let you address some of these other ones, because I've been hogging all the questions.
No, you're good. I've been trying to answer the questions as they come in the chat as well. So hopefully taking care of a bunch of those. Ken, you actually touched on this, and it sounded like you were going to start answering it, but then you stopped for a second. in the monetary policy, you talked about how there are different mechanisms that happen, the burn mechanism, the one that people typically ask about, and that I noticed almost immediately when I was testing this out. I was doing some transferring between exchanges and locking things in my wallet, and seeing, oh, could I unlock them? And no, you can't unlock them because it's cryptographically locked. But there was an SIB fee, and I was like, okay, well, what is this thing? And it was trying to charge me a specific amount of ndau for transferring, and I didn't realize it was a high volatility moment. Can you explain that, and how that is one of those mechanisms that actually helps protect and stabilize the coin itself?
Absolutely. So the intended usage as a long-term store of value for ndau is the following. We never advise that people buy ndau short-term. It's ideally suited for long-term store value. So in the months to years ranges. Typically what somebody would do is say, okay, I have a portion of my portfolio. I think the stock market's too risky for that. I think Bitcoin's too volatile. The US dollar, they're printing money like crazy. Who knows what's going to happen with potential inflation? I'd like to put a piece into something that's different to diversify. I'd like it to be held there for a certain period of time that I know I'm not going to need it. And I'm willing to lock it up for that. I'm willing to earn a higher rate for doing that. So they would buy it, they would lock it for the period of time that they choose, or that is required in that particular sale. And it earns an extra rate while that happens. Now, there might be, the market may fluctuate somewhat as that happens. Hopefully the stability mechanisms are keeping that more stable than alternatives out there along the way. When it comes time to liquidate, the idea is, well, the market might be doing fine, in which case there's no SIB. If it's close to where the current bonding curve point is, then the SIB doesn't apply, it's zero. And that's defined as if the market price is within 5% of the current bonding curve price. Now, if it's below that, the SIB starts to kick in. And the idea is you want to disincentivize transfers and selling during that period. So you would want to be patient and moving some into an exchange to sell it or to use it on chain, and make sure that you get the least SIB. Hopefully it's popped back up again at that point. You can move it into the exchange. You can sell it privately or whatever you want. Once it's in an exchange, then SIB doesn't apply. So you can think of holding it at the exchange is for people who are not interested in long-term holding. You're interested in trading it. You're interested in liquidating it. There's no SIB that applies there. So you only really have to worry about that window between when you've decided it's time to sell it and when you choose to actually move it in there. And you simply want an orderly transfer. You want orderly flow. And the SIB is the way of regulating that so that it's smoother, and the volume and the transactions and the market price that are happening in the exchange are able to absorb that new ndau as it's flowing in. So that's the basic life cycle, if you will, of ownership of ndau.
So let me ask a quick follow-up then. So if there is the negative market pressure and I am holding it, and people are sending their ndau to exchanges and burning ndau, if my math is serving me properly, when ndau is burned, does that not help increase the value of the ndau at current market price?
Yeah, so if the price is below the bonding curve significantly, and it's a market fluctuation downwards, well, that means there's too much supply. We want to bring it back up again, right? And if you contract supply, you're going to bring the price back up. I mean, this is basic market theory. So let's say it's down a little bit, and the SIB is at 5%. Well, different people will respond to that in different ways. One person might say, well, I'm going to wait till it goes back up. I need some liquidity right now. I'm going to sell some Bitcoin instead. Another person might say, I have some patience. I'll wait a little longer. So they decide, I'll just sell it next month when it pops back up again. So they do that. Both of those things are good because both of those helped relieve some of the overselling that was happening at that time and help bring the price up. Now, another person might say, you know what, I really need to sell it. This is the only thing I've got to sell at the moment. So I'm going to sell it, and I'm already up a lot. I'm fine with burning 5% in the process, and they do that. Now that also helps everybody at the same time too, right? Because now you've decreased by 5% the amount of his ndau that was in the whole ecosystem. And the more that happens, the more velocity there is, the more that supply is going to be reducing, and ultimately that has to drive the price back up again.
Awesome. This is cool, man. I'm loving this, guys. We are, if you guys are okay, I know we're about an hour, but I'd love to just keep going. We've got a few more questions. You guys still both good on a little bit, a few more?
Good, we're good.
All right, perfect. So here's one, and I'm excited to ask this one because this was one that I asked Rob a little while ago. Just I'm a novice, lack of real understanding of how all this stuff works, but I hear a lot of talk about ICOs, right? And I know what an IPO is, and obviously I can kind of make the correlation of what an ICO is. And in your explanation, Rob, I know you explained that that ndau was not an ICO. There was not an ICO. So why don't you explain to everybody why that is, and kind of the, I guess, advantages and the reason that it was not an ICO.
Absolutely. So we're, as venture capitalists, when we decided to invest in Onero, we wanted to make sure that legally we were doing everything right. And Ken's and his team and the ndau collective that kind of came together, their vision was, we want to create this ultimate long-term store of value. And if we're going to really do this and create something huge, massive, trillions of dollars, we got to start from the beginning. We got to do it right. And so the whole concept that we've decided to embrace is a decentralized concept. And these are, most of the best projects on the internet are all what I call decentralized concepts. What does that mean? What it means is that we decided never to do an ICO because ICOs could be construed as equity, right? A lot of times in the early days of the ICOs, you had projects that went out and sold their currencies, but they didn't have the actual blockchain working. And so you could misconstrue that as equity. So what we decided to do was say, no, we're going to take the high ground. We're going to do this right. We're going to hire the best lawyers we can. Number one, we're going to venture fund Onero and let them build ndau. Number one. Number two, Onero doesn't own ndau. ndau is completely decentralized. It's open source, and it's run by a foundation out of the Isle of Man. Very similar to the way Tezos, for instance, does it, and many other projects. So that was very, very important. And number three, what we're going to do is we're going to go build this blockchain using venture funding, and then once it's launched, then we're going to go out and let that network take off, and ultimately start issuing currency as demand is generated. And $20 million plus of demand was generated. So we did not subscribe to the whole ICO phenomena. ndau was never ICO'd. And we were very careful in the overall approach. The Blockchain Policy Council was voted in the second or the minute or the day, if you will, that the mainnet went live, and ultimately is run out of that foundation, out of the Isle of Man. So we're pretty proud of that, and we think that that's consistent with some of the best projects that are out there.
Christian, you want me to ask another one? Are you looking through? Christian's answering all the ones live, so I'm like, wait. Yeah. you keep going on those, Christian. I'll ask a couple more of these.
If I have some good ones to bring live, I'll drop them in here. Many that I will. One I do want to just address real quick. This is available in your back office in iGenius, so you can actually do your drop-down menu under My Products. Go to ndau. You do need to download the ndau wallet and make sure that your wallet address is empty because we cannot send locked ndau to a wallet that already has ndau in it. So that's important to note. We do have a check in place that makes sure that that is empty. So you want to keep that empty until the ndau has hit your wallet, and you will have the opportunity to pay for it there. People do not have to be an active iGenius member throughout the entire lock period. So if someone wanted to come in, invest some money into an ndau purchase, that would be okay. They do need to be active at the time of purchase. And the question we're getting a lot is, and maybe this is a good one that maybe Rob could answer even, is, iGenius has a partnership with ndau and the ability to purchase at a specific price that is currently below market. So when you purchase ndau, it is below what the market is currently trading, which is a set price of $15. And that's very unique. I mean, you don't ever see that. You don't usually have that opportunity in many of these companies where you can say, well, yeah, I can buy Bitcoin at 30,000, it's trading at 31,000, so that is one of the unique opportunities, but you absolutely can buy on an exchange. And so I wanted to address those kind of real quick before I jump back in. I see about 15 or 16 more. So Chad, you can think of some other questions.
One of the things, I just see this question that just popped in here as I was talking about, you were talking about the ICOs and that kind of thing. I think one of the things that's important to understand is that ndau isn't owned by anybody. If you hold ndau and it's in your wallet, you're part of the ecosystem. You're part of it. And if you want to write code for ndau, you're a developer, you can go into GitHub and it's open source and you can write code. If you're a PR firm and you're excited about marketing, you can go out and you can start doing that and submit a proposal and get paid in ndau to do that. And there are a number of firms that are working on some really cool projects. There's somebody developing a wallet. There's a firm in Europe that's building what's called a wrapped ndau, which is basically an Ethereum wrapped ndau so that it can be used in decentralized finance. There's another group out of Ireland that's creating a custody service. There's another marketing firm in Australia that's doing it. There are people that run nodes that are getting paid in ndau. Last year, over $1 million worth of ndau was awarded to ecosystem participants. Onero is just one of those ecosystem participants. They were the one that helped develop the currency. They built a piece of the wallet, but not all of the wallet. So Cosmo Ventures, we just, for us, we were early investors because we believe in the vision. We believe in the second mover advantage or the third mover advantage. What was Google? 8th, 9th, 10th mover? But anyway, we believe in that. So we're investors and we're excited about the prospect of this. There's a lot of excitement now around CBDC. I've noticed a lot of questions here on CBDC. What is CBDC? Central bank digital currencies. And essentially what we're going to see in the next 5 to 10 years is that all money, all currencies are going to move to blockchain. And it turns out that the countries that benefit the most are the emerging countries. These are the countries in South America and Central America and the Middle East and in Asia. And China's launching a CBDC. And so what we see is that there will be a massive opportunity for emerging markets to essentially create and manage a central bank digital currency. And all these central bank digital currencies need some form of monetary policy as dictated by the politicians in those countries. So Onero and ndau, we believe, have an integral opportunity, have an opportunity to go after that market, and because ndau was really designed with the monetary policy first, followed by the technology. We think it's very ideally suited for a lot of these emerging markets in the central bank digital currency side. Ken, if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, we studied how central banks manage currency, how they keep it stable. I mean, people have their pros and cons to say the U.S. dollar. But it's been one of the most successful products, if you will, of the United States or that's ever been, right? It's been very, very stable. They've, have mandated a 2% inflation rate. And despite all this money printing, they somehow seem to mostly keep that, for now at least. And it's because they have a very, very sophisticated set of monetary policy tools that they use to make that happen. And we studied all of those. We said, how can we use blockchain to do those things, but do even more? And how do we can do it in an automated, adaptive way, rather than have, some kind of central board that has to meet and then make decisions on it all the time? Can we just set the rules and set it and forget it, and then let it do its thing? And so that's kind of how we went about it. We think that together, this is a really interesting package for central banks to look at and say, hey, we can take a lot of the uncertainties of a centralized reserve policy being managed, and set something up to let it run it on its own, and get a lot of new kinds of benefits from that. So we think there's a lot of interesting potential there.
Cool. All right, I'm going to shift gears a little bit, because we've talked about some of these different monetary policy and a lot of these second, third, fourth, fifth mover advantages. But one of the things that I know that I have read, on your website, in the white paper that I read, something that we definitely we know is a strength, but to talk to some of the details of security, right? Because there's still some doubts, there's still some issues with people. With security, people hear about so-and-so got hacked, or this crypto exchange got hacked and people lost their crypto. Talk to us, guys, if you would. And I think this is probably a question for both of you about the security and how it potentially, is stronger than some of the security that's out there with the existing cryptocurrencies.
Sure. So, what we said is, if you look at how crypto is being owned and managed and secured out there, you have some people who are, they're experts in security, and they've got very sophisticated mechanisms for how they keep it on their computer or their phone or their hardware wallet, and they have a lot of different things that they do, because they know, if say you own Bitcoin and you lose that your secret key, and you can't, there's nothing you can do. You're stuck, right? If somebody steals it and transfers it away from you, you're also stuck. There's nobody that can help you. So a lot of people just started saying, you know what, I'm just going to leave it on an exchange or Coinbase or something like that, and I'll let them hold custody, because I'm not an expert and I can't trust that. And we said, well, that's not really, that's kind of getting away from the very point of it in the first place, which is to be in control of your own value. And we said, we have to do better than that. And we also want people to hold it in the wallets long term, so because that's the only way you can earn your EAI. So we have to do better than that. And so we have a number of different things that we built into it and are continuing to work on. One of them is called a recourse period. So the idea with that is, if you think about credit cards, they have their pluses and minuses, but one thing that's nice about them is, if a charge is made that you didn't make, so somebody's, figured out some way to do a false charge on you, there's a dispute period that you have where you can get that back again. We call it the recourse period, and we think that should be a fundamental thing built into the blockchain, not some layer on top in a smart contract that built into it. So we built into the blockchain a recourse period. It's initially just set to 1 hour so people can get used to the concept, and then as we develop more things around that, that'll be user settable, and you can say whether you want your transaction to happen immediately, with the risks that go with that, or you could say it's 3 weeks. You can say whatever it is you're comfortable with, and if you see a transaction happen that you didn't authorize, that gives you a way to dispute it and claw it back again. Second, we wanted a way to recover if you lost your keys or it got stolen or something like that. So, and this is still at an early stage in the tech, but it's called multi-sig. And it allows for a variety of ways of dealing with issues like, well, what if my spouse dies and they were the only ones that had the keys, and I need somehow to get it to me, right? There's stories in the news about that happening with Bitcoin. We went through all the different things that can happen with that private ownership, and how do you solve that with a multi-signature technique. So that's what we've been designing into that, and there'll be more news out about that as that comes together.
Anything from you, Rob, to add on that? I know the security thing is something that you focus a lot on in differentiating.
Yeah, I think I think Ken did a really good job there. Number one, recourse period, really important, and then number two, multi-sig. What do I do if I lose my keys? As Ken said, the multi-sig functionality is built into the blockchain. It's not yet implemented into the wallet, so it's there. And there'll be another rev of a wallet coming out, which will expose multi-sig in the wallet itself.
Okay. Well, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Let me ask one that came up with you and I when we were talking about this a little while ago, that it really made things clear. And I feel like we've touched on it a couple different times, but I think it may help some of the people that are maybe like me, that they've heard this, they've heard about Bitcoin mining, and, they've heard about how, there's this validation of the different transactions that happens. These different, computers are all basically competing to do so, because by doing so that they're rewarded with something. So we get that kind of at a high level. And then you have, like you said, running nodes, which is entirely different than mining, but some of the same things happen. And maybe you could just break that down into layman's terms, help everybody understand the difference between the way that ndau works, from a transaction validation standpoint compared to, Bitcoin or some of the others.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to caveat this, Ken, please don't make any faces as I talk non-technically about what's going on here. What do you got, like five undergraduate degrees in 4 years and Carnegie Mellon. But anyway, so please, I'm gonna handle this from a non-technical approach. So try not to make any faces, Ken. So look, if you think about it, right, what proof of work does in the way Bitcoin works is that you've got these computers called miners, and what they're doing is they're basically validating transactions, and they're creating consensus as to whether or not a transaction really occurred, and they validate it. And you've got a bunch of people all over the world running these high-speed computers, burning a lot of electricity, and showing proof of work and getting rewarded to essentially validate a transaction. That's how these proof of work architectures work. Proof of stake is different. The way proof of stake works is that instead you have a bunch of nodes that essentially prove the consensus, and you get rewarded for staking or putting up the money on your ability to validate that transaction. And so what we see is that if you look at all of the new projects, if you look at all of the major advances that are going on in blockchain, they all tend to be on the proof of stake side, because what it does is it essentially gets rid of that burden of doing all of this work. You don't have to have these heavy duty computers and burn all this electricity. It also aligns the reward with the holding. So it's synonymous to almost like putting your money in a bank account and getting interest. You're putting your money on a node and staking it and getting a reward for staking that. So ndau, again, very non-technical description here, Ken. I can see you going, yeah, well, it doesn't quite work that way. But the nice thing about this is that you can earn those rewards. ndau took it a step farther than that. And it's as simple as putting it in your wallet and locking it. And now you're earning those rewards. And so I don't need to even have a maker to go earn those rewards. And as part of the broader ecosystem, you have a bunch of validators, and those validators are part of that network, and they essentially validate and do the consensus across the network.
So is Ken gonna clear? Is Ken?
I was going to say, Ken, do you want to add any corrections or nuances?
I think at a high level, that was perfect, actually. I guess I can add just maybe just for people's understanding of what this consensus is really all about, right? It's actually a pretty simple thing that they're really trying to do, and that is to make sure that people don't double spend what they have. right? So if you have a joint checking account, 2 spouses, and there's $100 in it, and one writes a check for $100, doesn't tell the other one writes a check for $100, and they both try to spend it at the same time. Well, what does the bank do? Well, as a central institution, they clear one and the other one gets sent back, right? And they're the ones who are deciding. There has to be this bottleneck of decisions that get made about which ones go forward and which don't. So you can't spend the same money twice. And that's what consensus is really all about. And so the proof of work ones like Bitcoin are competing to see who can decide which transactions get through and get to spend the limited amount of money. And the proof of stake ones have a consensus where everybody, there's a bunch of machines and they all have to put up a stake and they all have to agree with each other. They all say, okay, this $100 check is the one that gets through and this one doesn't. And when they all agree, it just moves on to the next block. And so there's a competing different ideas about the best way to do it, the fastest way to do it, the most secure way to do it. And it's one of the most interesting and innovative aspects of the blockchain industry right now, as far as what's going to be ultimately the best way.
Cool. All right, guys, this has been awesome. So I have been just like a sponge absorbing all this information from these two super smart, very successful individuals. So I have not done a good job of tracking the Q&A that's going on. And Christian, I know we're up against the clock, but if there are, one or two that you want to get, because I definitely want to give Rob and Ken kind of just a closing, kind of last thoughts and let them kind of wrap things up. But a couple of questions that have come in through the Q&A that you feel like we need to discuss, Christian.
Yeah, so one thing that I mentioned that I do want to make sure I clarify, if you have an ndau wallet and you purchase ndau, let's say I go and purchase ndau today, I lock it, so I want my 15%, so I lock it for 3 years. What I meant by you can't have ndau in your wallet is every time that you purchase and lock ndau, it must be a new wallet address. And so within the app, there's a little plus button. You can click on the button. It creates a new wallet. You can hold it and lock it. It'll actually tell you when it's going to unlock. It's going to show you your daily EAI deposits. It's actually really neat. You can go in and see that. But what I meant is, if you wanted to buy every single day ndau, you can do that and lock one every single day. If you wanted to purchase once a month, with some of your pay, you can do that. That's absolutely okay. All I meant by that was you simply need to make sure that when you are going to lock your ndau wallet, that it is empty so that we can send the ndau to it, or else we're going to run into problems where we can't send to a wallet that already has some stuff in it.
Yeah, the way you think of it is when the ndau is locked in the wallet, it's basically turning it into a CD, right? And if you have a certificate of deposit at a bank, you can't pour more money into it once you've bought that CD. So every address in the ndau wallet is really like a separate CD if it's locked, and that's why you need to have new ones to receive it in.
Yeah, like I have probably 50 accounts in my one wallet, right? I have an account that's locked for 3 years. I have another one locked for 2 years. I have some that are unlocked. Somebody say, hey, send me some ndau, send them some ndau, So you can configure that however you want. With this particular iGenius program, when we're transferring the ndau to you, we're locking it. And so because we're transferring and locking it to you in that single kind of initial purchase, the account has to be, can't have anything in it. It has to be empty and unlocked because we're transferring and locking it there.
Hey, that made me think of one quick question, and maybe just something to clarify as well that we went through when we did the process. Once the ndau actually does hit your wallet, it's there, you're holding it, and there are obviously benefits for holding, right? There's reward for holding, but you then can decide when you want to go ahead and hit that button to start the countdown, which then the rewards increase because now you're locking it. But I just to clarify that with everybody, you'll still keep receiving rewards once it hits your wallet. It's not like the second it hits, you've got to go lock it immediately. You can lock it a day later, 5 weeks later, 2 years later. You'll still be receiving all those rewards while it's in your wallet and you're holding it. It's just to get those locking rewards, you've got to go then hit, start the countdown.
It's being compounded continuously, right? So you've got this account, you can literally see it. It's just, it's compounding continuously. So
I thought that was,
it's pretty cool.
Right.
So there was a follow up on that, and it was I can buy ndau every single day and use that same wallet. If you were transferring from an exchange into that wallet and you had not locked it, that's okay. But when you purchase through iGenius, it is coming to you locked, so you would need to get a new wallet. And people,
a new account.
A new account, yes. You keep your ndau wallet, but you add the account. Correct. Sorry.
Yeah, there's sort of 3 levels to it, just so people understand. If you have the app on your phone, you can have multiple wallets for different purposes. Within each wallet, you can have multiple accounts, but you need a fresh, empty account to receive what you purchased from iGenius.
Yeah, that's really good clarification.
And we are getting this question a lot too. When someone locks and their 3 years is over, what do they do? And the answer to that is it becomes unlocked. You have a couple different options. You can leave it in there. It still accumulates some of that percentage. It's not the full percentage of being locked. You can withdraw it to an exchange. You cannot exchange it into fiat currency from the ndau wallet. You do need to transfer it to an exchange. Again, keeping in mind, people are asking what is the percentage, or is there a negative effect? Only if the SIB is kicked in. And remember, that is if there's negative selling pressure in the market. When you go to transfer, there will be a fee, and many people will just wait until the market stabilizes and is closer to that next price where they can actually transfer it to an exchange, and they could sell if they chose to do so. So there's many different options that you can do at the end of your lock period. And you do not have to, I want to make this clear, because some people say, well, I'm not comfortable with it only being through iGenius. You do not have to buy ndau through iGenius only. We simply have a couple different things that we offer through iGenius. I actually own some on one of the exchanges that ndau is offered. So I have some on an exchange. I have some locked in my wallet, and I have some that's purchased through iGenius. So take a look at it. This is simply a relationship that we've created that you can go out, do your due diligence, please. That's why we had this webinar, is to hear from some of the initial investors and founders and, ideologists behind this. So please get all the information, but this is not something that you have to purchase through iGenius exclusively. They're out there doing, their institutional investments and looking at it from that side. We're simply looking at it from a retail side. So I did want to clear that up as well. We got that a couple of times coming through. And then purchase flows in your back office through ndau. You can see all of that under my products in your back office.
Yeah, Christian, let me just piggyback.
Sorry, fiat currency, just for a couple of people. Fiat currency is like USD, so dollar. So transferring your cryptocurrency into like US dollar or something like that. So sorry, go ahead, Chad.
No, perfect. I just wanted to say, and first of all, that was pretty impressive. Christian just was able to go through all those different things. So, and in front of Ken and Rob, which is impressive, because, I get a little nervous making sure I say everything the right way in front of these two. But yeah, you absolutely don't have to buy ndau through iGenius, but iGenius has this arrangement. We have an agreement in place that allows us to purchase. And like you said earlier, Christian, today, the price that people are getting in the iGenius package is lower than what the market price is for ndau buying it on the open market. So that's the first advantage. The second advantage that we've talked about is we have the total protection plus purchase protection in place. So when somebody purchases through iGenius, there are some pretty significant advantages. And so obviously we would want to make sure that if you are curious and trying to understand that, then please get with whoever introduced you to this, and whoever maybe got you an invitation to be on this webinar, and find out what those advantages are of purchasing ndau in the packages that iGenius offers, because we believe that we've provided a ton of value in those packages so that you can make this purchase in a really unique way and really benefit on the upside. So I would add that. All right. Christian, if you're done, what I want to do, just in these last couple of minutes, is just kick it over to Rob. Well, first let's go to Ken, and maybe Ken, we've talked about all these different elements of this new this adaptive digital currency today. We're excited about it. I know you guys are obviously excited about it. We all believe that this could be, the next really big thing. But if you were to just, kind of your elevator pitch, final statements of why this thing is, so powerful, why ndau could become, I hate saying it, but maybe the next Bitcoin, or, you know, one of the next really big digital currencies that people all over the world are going to see the benefits of, what would be, you know, your kind of quick summary of that?
Well, I would say the group of folks that worked with me on developing the core ideas of it, you know, we really planned for the long run. This is a 20-year type of thing where we could see here's where the evolution of blockchain is going to go, and we wanted to build something that would fit in with all of the phases we could see happening in the future. So many more things can be built on, generating new use cases, generating demand for it. And really fixing a lot of problems that a lot of the originators had with what's breaking down in our society. So there's more than making money at this for a lot of the designers of this. We said there's problems out there and we need to fix them. And blockchain has a unique set of solutions that have never existed before. And all the, you know, political philosophers that have tried to come up with the best governance system and how to build institutions that are resilient, they didn't have blockchain. So all of those theorists didn't have this key new tool that we now have access to. And so it's exciting to us to see what effect can we have on the world and improving things that are broken out there right now with this. And the blockchain as a whole industry, it's still only inning one as far as fixing a lot of those things. It's still kind of focused on decentralized finance and on monetary systems, but there's so many more things that this can apply to once you have this unit of accountability, this unit of trust out there. We think that's exciting, and this is basically the beginning of this whole new set of things that we think are going to be happening over the next 20 years.
Pretty tough to follow, Rob, because you know he just went all, you know, that was cool.
Yeah, look, I look at this as this has changed the world. This is huge. This is the single largest value creation event, I believe. This is the single largest value creation event, at least in my lifetime. And I've been through the internet, been there, done it, did it a bunch of times. And to me, this is much bigger than that. So that's where I get excited. And where I get excited personally is, just like Ken, that's why we work together, is, you know, more than 40% of the world is unbanked. They don't have a bank account. Now, but you know what? They have one of these, okay? They have one of these. And now all of a sudden, all I need is one of these, and I can have a bank account. And to me, that's profound. So yet, only 10, 15% of the world is in this, which means that 80%, 85% of the world is yet to come online. So as investors, holy cow, I got to be part of that. I absolutely have to be part of that. I'm a big fan of Bitcoin. So is Ken. We were buying early. Okay, right, Ken? We were buying Bitcoin early, and we sold some and bought some and sold some and bought some, and we're believers of this. But I'm also a believer in the second, third, fourth mover advantage. And if you're a believer in that, then you got to invest in that. And that's our approach. So, you know, my philosophy is, you know, you got to look at the market. You know, I have a friend of mine, and he had an apparel company in the 90s, and he sold it. And by chance, he bought Yahoo. And, okay, and early on, and then he sold Yahoo, a big portion of it, and bought Google. And I can tell you, he doesn't work. Okay, he hasn't worked for a long time. And you know, he was fortunate to kind of be almost, you know, he was fortunate kind of because he's a genius, but really he had the right timing, and he saw that, okay, he was inspired by the internet, and he bought in, and then he was inspired by what that meant, and he bought into the second movers. And so I think that's really how we think about it here, is what can we learn? What can we learn from Bitcoin, and how do we embrace that? It's exciting times. It's exciting times. And I opened up saying why I'm so happy about iGenius is because you guys have this great network of retail, mainstream, you know, folks that understand this and can see it. And for us, that was, you know, we're excited about it.
Well, let me first say thank you on behalf of everybody that's plugged in, and there's going to be a lot of people watching this this replay, over the next couple of weeks. So thank you guys for taking some time out of your busy days. We recognize that you guys are busy going a million miles an hour to, to make things happen with ndau. And so thank you guys for taking some time. We appreciate it. And the cool thing is like you said, there's a whole bunch of people that we have all over the world that are iGenius distributors and members. And they're learning little by little, that they're getting a handle on this stuff, and like a webinar like today really helps people solidify and understand what it is that they have access to. Through their membership in iGenius, they now have access to an absolutely what could be a home run of an opportunity. So we're excited about it. We're fired up to be partners with you guys. And again, just want to tell you guys how much we appreciate the work that has already been put in, for the past couple of years. We're kind of the lucky ones. You guys have been grinding and getting us to a place where now today things are all operating smooth, and we can make things go. It's pretty turnkey. So appreciate all the hard work that's gone into getting us to this point. Christian, unless there's anything that you feel like if we didn't cover, we'd be absolutely crazy, I think we will wrap this up, and then just encourage everybody to, Christian, anything that you've got. Perfect.
Oh,
Hey,
no, I don't think so.
Chad, I'd recommend we capture all of there's a lot of questions people have sent, and I don't think there's time to go over those today, but let's capture them all and make sure that we can either do another session or get back on some of the ones we think everybody'd like to know answers to later. I just want to make sure people know that.
Perfect. Yeah, we will do everything, guys. And there was a few that we didn't, because they came in a little bit late before we got the webinar launched, before we created our little document here. So we'll get all those addressed. We will absolutely, if these guys are willing, maybe do a round 2 of this type of a scenario where we'll talk through and we'll deep dive. And then, yeah, if those of you that, were invited to watch this, or somebody shared this with you, please get back with that person and learn more about ndau, learn more about what iGenius has to offer in general. And we will, we'll go from there. But guys, thanks so much for being with us. We'll wrap it up. And again, we'll get back to everybody on those questions you've got. So make sure that, you guys submit those questions you have, and everybody will understand this completely. Thanks again, Rob and Ken. We really appreciate your time.
I want to personally thank everybody for taking the time to listen to us talk. So thank you all. We enjoyed it, and we're excited to be working with everyone here. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.